Dr. Taunya Lowe. Welcome to the first episode of the Riot Starter Chat. I have the privilege of interviewing Elana Winfrey today. Hi, Elana.
Hi, Taunya.
Elana is a colleague, a friend. She's my soror of one of the best sororities in the world, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. She is the mother of four, and she's an entrepreneur, a social media expert. I've worked with her personally, and she is a blogger. She has a wonderful blog, and she's also the former CEO of the Bridges Center. Welcome, Elana.
Hi, Taunya. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming and chatting with us today. So tell our Riot Starters a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and how long you've been in the field. Tell them a little bit about who you are.
All right. Well, first and foremost, I'm a mental health therapist. I have been in the field since 1997. Got my associate license in 1999, my full license in 2002. So, once you're a therapist, you're always a therapist. You can't take it away.
Right. It's always there.
It's always there, 24 hours a day. I'm also a marketing consultant, primarily social media marketing, but also all types of marketing to help. I've helped a lot of behavioral health agencies as far as getting their marketing strategy in place. Creative. I like to paint and draw, sew, quilt.
You have a love for
decorator.
horses.
I like horses. I love to ride horses, so I get to do that.
Yeah.
Now at a friend's ranch, so that's been really nice. So I have 4 children. So I'm a mother. First and foremost, I'm a mother. And yeah.
How old is your oldest child?
My oldest child will be 22 in December.
Okay.
He's almost done with school.
December what?
2nd.
Oh, he's a Sagittarius like me.
So he's a great young man. Very hardworking. So.
And how old is your youngest?
My youngest is 7.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he's a sweetheart.
Okay.
Very sweet, very kind-hearted, very sweet. So Mr.
Wow.
Jameson.
Jameson. I love that name.
He's my baby. So yes, so I'm a military brat,
Okay.
so it's hard for me to claim any place. But I was born in Biloxi.
Biloxi, Mississippi.
Yeah, I
okay.
left there when I was a toddler. My dad is a Vietnam veteran, so
Okay.
left there when my dad came back from Vietnam.
Mm.
So moved around my entire life. When I left home, my dad was still active duty, so I was a military brat my entire life.
Okay, so you lived all over.
Yes, I lived
okay.
in Europe a couple times. I lived in several different states, so I enjoyed that life.
Great.
I did.
So, Elana, this interview today was sparked from a blog series that I did about a year ago entitled What Behavioral Health Organizations Don't Know and Why They Fail. And so there were 3 parts to that blog. They fail because they don't hire right, they fail because they are slow to make adjustments, and they fail because they don't network.
Right.
So what was it from that 3-part series that resonated with you? Because we've had a lot of conversation about that blog. So what resonated with you?
All of it. I mean, all of it, because with the British Center, those are things that we, I could say some of those things we did well, but there were some of those things that you talked about in the article that we definitely had challenges with that I can say contributed to ultimately why the British Center is no longer open. But some of those things we did well, and I think that I liked that part. Like, oh, I did this well, but the hiring right was definitely a challenge, and slow to make adjustments. I know that was a challenge, so it was a contributing factor to a lot of the things that happened. Despite the fact that so many things went well, ultimately some of the things that you mentioned in your blog post were definitely contributing factors.
So let's talk about the Bridges Center.
Okay.
Tell folks about the Bridges Center. I had an opportunity when I worked for APS Healthcare. I never got an opportunity to audit you, but everyone talked about the Bridges Center.
Right.
So tell the Riot Starters about the Bridges Center.
Oh my gosh, the British Center was my baby. I loved it. I enjoyed it. I started because I felt like it was a way to help more people. I was already even at that time, doing some consulting, helping people get their agencies up and running. And so at that time I decided I wanted to start my own because I helped other people to start theirs. And we started in 2005 and grew very quickly.
Tell us about that.
Grew very quickly. By the time we had our first audit, we opened in May. By the time we got notified of our first audit, which was October, November, we already had 12 IFI teams.
Okay.
Which was 36 staff.
And IFI stands for?
Intensive Family Intervention Teams, and that's where staff work together in groups. For us, it was groups of 3 at that time to service a caseload of clients, so maybe between 12 and 15 clients. So we had 12 IFI teams, approximately 150 clients within that 4-month period of opening.
Wow, you grew fast.
Very fast.
Okay.
So, and those referrals continued even up until the day the British Center closed. We always got, that's why I said there was one thing that resonated. I knew that we were doing well, which was the networking.
Yeah.
Because we always got a lot of referrals.
Where were your referrals coming from?
Our referrals, when I started, the first person I did hire was a marketing liaison.
Okay, so you saw the benefit in marketing.
That was my very first hire, was a marketing liaison, because I knew how important it was to build and nurture relationships with people and to make sure that those relationships were mutually beneficial. So, it's one thing to get a referral, but it's more important to make sure your referral sources are getting what they need.
Exactly.
Because, let's just say, for example, working with DFACs. We did get referrals from DFACs. That was one of the first places that we focused on as far as our efforts. And they have a lot of needs.
Yes, they do.
Because they're overwhelmed with caseloads. They need their reports when they need them.
Right.
They need to make sure that you're communicating with them. So putting things in place to make sure that consistently they were getting what they needed.
And so those efforts helped those referrals to just really flow in.
Tremendously, because when they know they can count on you to get what they need, they're going to you're going to be top of mind.
Great.
And we were top of mind.
So you grew quickly, you had a marketing liaison, you had referrals coming in, hand over fist from DFACs.
Yes.
Tell me about those audit scores.
They were at the beginning.
Yes.
They were very good. I mean, even our first one, I believe we passed, but because we were so fast.
Always in the 90s, from what I remember.
In the beginning, our audit scores were always very good. So even the first one, we passed. So it was, having grown that fast and honestly being able to say there's probably some things that weren't in place, we still did okay on our audit scores because of making sure some systems were in place, and that's what helped us. So,
Elana, the Bridges Center, for a lot of people, was kind of seen as a model, So, tell me about some of the other how many people did you serve? Did you serve children and adults, or just
We primarily served children. We did have some adults.
Okay.
We also had a component of the British Center that was more of a private practice model. Okay. So I had, at some point, we had therapists that were in the office on, full time, and clients would come see them, with private insurances like Blue Cross and Aetna. So we also had that piece. We were also, as far as being a model, we were chosen by one of the CMOs to be a part of a pilot program for a family preservation group. It was us and 2 other large agencies.
Right.
So our agency was kind of the hub for that, because we had the space for everybody to meet when we had to collaborate and do check-ins. Yeah. But, it was an honor to be selected to do that family preservation group program with them. So it was something they were testing out. And they chose agencies that they thought would be agencies that they felt were stellar and would be able to follow through. And we were the only one to actually finish the program.
Wow.
So there was a graduation that was required, and we were the only ones that actually got to the end of the 12 weeks and actually did a graduation with the clients and their families.
Commitment to excellence.
Yes, and that CMO, the person that was in charge, flew down for the graduation even. So, just to see that we had done it and finished it. And it was a big commitment.
And tell our folks what CMO is.
It's a care management organization. So when Medicaid privatized back in 2006, it was transferred over from being just run by the state to being run by care management organizations, and there were 3 in there. So it was one of the CMOs that chose us to do that.
So, Elana, it sounds like it was a really exciting time at the Bridges Center. How did you come up with that name, the Bridges Center?
Oh, that's easy. Bridges, for me, represent a vessel. Okay. A vessel with a lot of strength. Vessels that are able to weather storms. Okay. And they help you to overcome obstacles. Yeah. They're built because there's an obstacle, and the bridge is to help you to get from one point to the other point where there's an obstacle in place. Yeah. And I wanted to be the British Center to represent that bridge to help people. Even our referring sources, they were our customers, so we were there to help them overcome obstacles that they were having. Right. So the British Center was a bridge to help overcome obstacles.
Wow. So, Elana, tell me some more good stuff from the Bridges Center. Tell me, you guys were a model. People saw you as a model. You had great scores. So I want the Riot starters to get a good picture of the Bridges Center. Who was this Bridges Center? So tell them a little bit more about the Bridges Center.
I think one of the biggest pieces of the good stuff was that we were very committed to cultural diversity in regard to client care.
Yeah.
So that was very important to me, to make sure we were serving clients of various ethnic backgrounds.
Okay.
And because of that, we did have a large Hispanic population.
Right.
We got a lot of referrals from the Hispanic Consulate and the Haitian Immigrant Center, and we always had a language service so that we could communicate with our clients.
Wow.
Even in the office.
Okay.
But I had it set up to where the staff could use it at home as well when they visit the clients at home, by making sure that, we gave out cell phones.
Okay.
So that they would be able to put the translator on the speakerphone.
So you're using
we
technology
trained them.
early.
Yes, we used a lot of technology.
Okay.
We trained them on how to make sure it was a private place and all that, so you could put the translator on the cell phone, because we wanted to make sure we were able to communicate with the clients, and because they struggled to find a provider that was willing to meet their needs.
And bilingual.
Yes. And so we also recruited bilingual staff. We had staff that spoke French. I did do some marketing to recruit staff that were, from Haiti.
Wow.
That had those bilingual, capabilities.
Yeah.
So that, and coupled with always having a language translation service, a live service.
Okay.
So that was huge. That was huge, and people knew us for that. We became known for that.
Tell us a little bit more about the technology, because I know that you love technology, and you were probably one of the agencies that started using technology way before a lot of people. So
I've heard that.
Tell us about the technology.
I was big into technology. All of our staff had laptops that we assigned, we gave out. That was for also protective reasons, but we gave out cell phones and laptops. Because the technology is so important. One of the things I did was a training on text counseling. Okay. Because we couldn't avoid the fact that clients were texting our staff.
Oh yeah, once they get your
Even
number,
if they have their personal cell phones, if staff are going to text you. So it was difficult to ignore that and just say don't do it, because your clients are going to do it.
Yeah.
So we trained the staff on how to do minimal counseling through text messaging, because of the fact that clients are going to do it anyway. And text messaging now, there's a lot of research on how you can do it through counseling, or email. We have consent, so the clients agree to it, and again, training the staff on how to do it and how to do it properly. So very big into technology, using an EHR.
Okay,
to cut
EHR
down.
is
electronic health record system.
Yes.
That would have strong quality control and quality assurance features, so that we wouldn't have to do that manually.
Yes.
It was very important to be able to click a button and know what was going on at any time in the agency.
Wow.
So Welligent was our system.
Okay.
At the time, we switched to Welligent after about a year and a half, and it was awesome. Okay. It has some very tight quality control, quality assurance features. Okay. So yes, technology was big. Okay. Technology was big.
So you told me that you served a diverse population. Just kind of, how many areas? What was your service area?
We served the entire metro Atlanta area.
Okay.
So that's how we marketed. People knew. So if we told them, we would tell them what counties.
So all the counties,
and that was all the
metro
counties in the metro area. We may have gotten a few clients in the outlying areas that we took, on a case-by-case basis, depending on their needs and the referring agent and what we were going to have to do. But mostly we were servicing the metro Atlanta area.
So tell us about some of the successes from the families and the adolescents that you worked with. I'm sure you're servicing children with needs, a lot of needs. So tell me about that.
The funny thing is, since I've closed, I've run into families that, there's been one situation where the British Center was mentioned in the room, and she, a family jumped up and she came and hugged me because she was so excited about the changes that had happened with her child.
What kind of changes?
Changes, a lot of our clients were referred from the truancy court, DeKalb County, Fulton County. Dealing with them getting to school and finding out what family issues were going on and why that child, got to the point where they were involved with the truancy court, children who were involved with the Department of Juvenile Justice and helping them to make changes in their home. Children who were coming out of residential care.
So when you talk about changes in the home, what do you mean? Like not talking back?
Parenting, helping the parents, because when you service a client, you're not servicing the client, you're servicing their entire family.
Wow.
And one thing I do say, even when I train now, children weren't born that way.
Yeah.
They got that way by the environment and the people that influence them.
Yeah.
So the only way to help that child is to help the people around them that are consistently influencing them.
So parenting skills for the parents, and what type of
behavioral modification.
Okay.
Even teaching parents how to do their own behavioral modification.
Awesome.
So we as parents need to know how to do that.
Okay.
How to be a parent.
Yeah.
Some parents don't function as parents, and that causes conflict when their child doesn't see them as a parent.
Did you go into the schools?
Yes, a lot.
And I bet that helped the school teachers. What type of successes did you see there?
We actually were chosen to have an office in a couple of the alternative schools. So we actually had placement where we could go there to see clients, which was awesome. So yes, a lot of that was children who had been placed in the alternative school. The reason for that, a lot of times, had very little to do with what was going on in school. It had to do with what's going on at home.
Yeah.
So we were chosen to be there as an approved agency to help those children placed in alternative school in Fulton and DeKalb.
Why would it benefit to have a behavioral health provider in my school? Why would I want that?
Because the school counselors don't do that. They're not there to do that. That's not in their job description.
Right.
That's not their role.
Yeah.
So when they're dealing with those children every day in the classroom and something's happening and they don't have the resources to do it, at that time we were able to be there to help them, and full time.
Wow.
Full time, having someone there all the time to help those children.
Wow. Elana, it sounds like the Bridges Center was a great place to work. It sounds like you made a lot of impact. A lot of impact in the community, a lot of impact in families. I love your work with cultural diversity. You know, all of those things are so important.
Right.
So I want to transition you a little bit. Tell me, when did things start turning around?
Well, the first big turn was, remember I said we grew very fast.
Yes.
And as you become bigger and you have a lot of staff, that your net is bigger.
Yes.
So we had employees, contractors, who filed for unemployment.
Okay.
And that happened 1, 2, and then a third time.
So they filed for unemployment because they were thanked for their services?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes. They were thanked for their services, and then you go file for unemployment. And that by the third time, an auditor, not an investigation, but a field auditor came in just to ask us some questions, a very casual visit.
And they came
that he called and said ahead of time, hey, I need to come talk to you. From the State Department of Labor.
Okay.
A field auditor.
Okay.
Just came to have a casual visit to tell us, what he had seen as far as some of the unemployment claims.
Knock, hey, I'm here from the Labor Department.
Yeah, he called ahead. He called ahead and said, hey, I need to come chat with you.
Okay.
So he did. We set a meeting and he came and chatted with us.
All right.
And let us know that our contractors who were working in the community did not meet the requirement to be contractors.
Now, Elana, you know that in our field, and in a lot of businesses, people hire contractors and they utilize them like employees.
Yes.
So were you surprised when the field auditor said that?
I was surprised, but by that point I had started to learn, because when it happened the first time, we did get penalized.
Okay.
Because they reviewed the case and they decide, even on the first one, that person did not meet the criteria to be a contractor.
So was that before the auditor came out?
Yes.
Okay.
And on the second one, when the person went to unemployment, and they were denied, but then they appealed.
Okay.
And so that led them to look a little bit more about what they were doing. And we also lost that appeal.
Okay, so it took you 3 times.
Yes, we had the back taxes and penalties. So this happened in a very short period of time.
Okay.
So I started researching, what's going on. I thought this was okay. And the third time, by that time I did know, but the person was gone. I did know.
Okay.
So, but nevertheless, the field auditor came in after it was determined by that third time that we also needed to pay the back taxes and penalties on that third person. Because we had paid them as a contractor when they were determined they were not a contractor.
Okay.
So he told us that we had to change all of our contractors working in the community over to W-2 employees.
Ouch. Yeah, that's a big hit.
that we were required to do that because they did not meet the criteria to be contractors.
Okay.
So that led to huge payroll costs as well as huge payroll tax costs.
Yeah, that transition from contractor to employee is very challenging.
Yes.
And very costly.
Yes.
And if you're not prepared for it, it can tell us more.
If you're not prepared for it, which I can say that we weren't because we had to do it immediately.
Okay.
When you came in, I mean, it was just kind of I'm telling you now. Mm-hmm. If you don't want anything else to happen, do what I'm asking you. This is a casual meeting.
Right.
So we did what he said.
Okay.
And it was costly.
Yeah.
Our payroll by that time was 90% of what we were bringing in. And then we had operating costs.
Of course.
So between payroll running between 90 and 95% and operating costs between 15 and 18%, which is low. Our operating costs were low. It still put us in a deficit.
So you had to go back and pay back taxes.
Yes.
And then you had to
and penalties.
pay taxes and penalties.
They add penalties onto that.
And then you had to transition and start paying
everyone
payroll taxes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And so in that situation, they're classified as professionals. So there's a difference between non-exempt and exempt.
Yes.
And a person of a certain profession, you have to pay them a minimum salary as well,
exactly.
even when they're working in the community.
Okay. So that was the first one, Department of Labor.
Big.
Okay.
That was big.
Yeah, it sounds big.
Because the revenue wasn't coming in to cover it.
Yeah.
The revenue wasn't coming in to cover that.
So, okay, so, Elana, you mean to tell me that you're the Bridges Center? I mean, you got people from all over the world, providing services. What do you mean the revenue wasn't coming in? Help me understand that.
Help you understand that? Okay. So, transitioning even after the Department of Labor, because of knowing that the revenue wasn't coming in, I transitioned over to an EHR, electronic health record, Wellagent,
yes.
which was awesome.
Okay.
And one of the things it did was it has very strong quality control, quality assurance features. Mm-hmm. So we knew at any minute or any second if something wasn't being done. Mm-hmm. And just because you see a client doesn't make it billable.
So I've gone out, I've done the work, I brought you my notes. Mm-hmm. You're going to pay me, right?
Yes, and there's so many other things that need to do with that note.
Wow.
Because when an auditor comes in,
yes,
they're not just looking at the note. They're going to make sure the order for services is there. Is the treatment plan been updated? Are you doing your community linkages? Have you done
your snaps?
At that time, where we had to do CAPAS updates.
Yeah.
Have you done your CAPAS update? And I could go on and on. But if those things weren't there, then my mantra was, we don't bill the claim.
Right.
Because at that point, you're not supposed to bill the claim. Because a claim is inclusive of a number of things.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of joking with you, but I want our the people that are watching this to get an understanding of how I was an auditor.
Yes.
And I work with a lot of organizations now as a consultant, and they don't take that stance. And that's the thing that I encourage folks to do is if you are not getting that quality paperwork in and having systems in place.
Don't bill the claim.
Don't bill it. But what they decide to do is take a chance.
Yes.
And the more you take a chance, you put your organization at risk. Mm-hmm. And so what you're saying is, we had all this stuff going on, but to minimize your risk, you didn't bill.
Correct.
Which affected the revenue, which had I'm sure
affected payroll, being able to meet payroll. We had a lot of administrative staff who weren't billing. So, our service staff were the revenue generators, but that revenue also covered the people who were working in the office. Yeah. So if you're not bringing in that revenue, which means the claim has to be billable, then you're going to be in a deficit.
No, did all of this happen around the fee-for-service?
No, that was later. Okay. That was later. Wellagent just kind of helped point out when things weren't there. Okay. So, it also was great because we didn't have to do a lot of audit preparation.
Yes.
Because at any moment, Wellagent would not let you do certain things if it wasn't there. So that was great.
All right. Plug in for Wellagent.
Yes, Wellagent. I can't speak. Just awesome system. It has a lot of forensic capabilities too. Okay. So I can talk about that if you want.
Very good.
But so after that, the other thing that led to the turn was when the state changed to only having a few providers provide fee-for-service.
I remember that.
So for us, having a large number of undocumented clients, which meant they were fee-for-service, and having that cultural diversity philosophy, that really hurt us. And I can say that I don't think we made the transition, which was hard because my philosophy and the core values for us were being available to clients of various cultures in every way that we could.
Okay.
And so changing that, I can admit, was emotionally difficult to not be able to do that the way we wanted. And I don't think we made that transition, which is something that resonated with me in your blog post, not making the transition we need to. And I can say that we did not. Okay. And trying to continue to do that without being able to have that fee-for-service available to meet the needs of our undocumented clients.
Wow. So you had the Department of Labor come in and say, give me more money, we need the money. Your people are not contractors, they're employees. You had the switch from 1099 to W-2.
On everyone.
On everyone. You had the fee-for-service change and not being able to have that income coming in.
Yes, and not adjust to the change.
And adjust to the change because there was a huge shift around that time frame.
Yes.
So Elana, we have talked about the Bridges Center and how great of an organization it was. We talked about some challenges and so of when things kind of started to turn around for the Bridges Center. So when did things get hard? When did things get so difficult for you? When did you see that shift?
The beginning of the shift was, I have to go back to when we were having difficulty with meeting payroll because of having to change everybody over to W-2 and the revenue not necessarily coming in because, again, as I need to recap, just because you see a client doesn't mean you can bill for the claim,
right? Which
affected our revenue. And so we had issues with slow paying people. So I'll start out that with slow paying people. Okay. And there were some employees who kind of collaborated together to go to the media about the slow paying. So we were on the news in 2009.
Okay,
that was the first time.
So let me get clarification here. You had gone through this hurdle of all of these additional expenses for your business, and then you weren't able to pay people on scheduled pay dates.
Yes,
is that correct?
Because of the revenue not coming in.
And so you had staff that worked for you that went to the media?
Yes.
You mean like Channel 5, Fox 5, and Channel
all
2,
of those.
and WSB and all of that?
All of those.
Wow. Okay. So tell me about that. Tell me about that.
Okay. So the first time it happened, I get a call from the reporter. I actually was at a state meeting.
Okay.
And I got a call from the reporter because they came to the office, but I wasn't there. They don't call in advance, they just show up. So I wasn't there, so I agreed to talk with him on the phone. I did, and so we talked on the phone.
Did you have nothing to hide?
No. Right. I was more than happy to talk to him on the phone, so gave him, my side of the story.
Yeah.
And so, actually the report wasn't as negative as I thought it was going to be.
Okay.
And believe it or not, that was our highest referral week.
Wow. Wow, okay.
Because he did call the state.
Okay.
A part of his investigation was to call the state to see what kind of reports they had received from families and, other agencies, and they had gotten nothing but good reports. And the state told him that.
Right.
So he put that as a part of the story.
Very good.
So we got 55 referrals that week.
That worked in your favor.
Highest week. Yeah. So it worked in our favor, but it did not help us in regards to having maintaining employees and making sure that we had the best people.
Okay.
Because employees took that media link, which is online, and would share it with other people.
Wow.
So that made it hard to keep people.
And how did that affect your business and the relationships that you developed with other people? How did that affect the business?
Ironically, it didn't affect anything with our referral agents.
Okay.
It didn't affect anything with the state agencies.
Okay.
It affected us keeping good employees because people will go by, what they hear versus doing their own investigation to find out all that's going on. So not everybody, because there were some people that came even after the news story that knew about it, that came on board anyway. But I can say that it affected us being able to keep employees. And that was hard because then the turnover became it increased greatly.
Of course.
The turnover increased greatly.
So you had this news story kind of hit the fan. Were there any other things that caused things to just kind of continue the downward spiral?
Yeah, the news story increasing to the high turnover, and then that led to other news stories.
Okay.
As things, as time went on and the same situations weren't improving.
Okay.
Fee for service had taken effect by then. We had been notified, but then it took effect.
Right.
So, not being, again, as I said, not being able to transition well to not having that funding source. So that led to increased payroll, meeting of payroll demands and taxation demands. So, when you can't pay people the way they're supposed to be paid,
of course,
they become very upset, as they should.
Of course.
And so people went to the news again.
Wow. So, Elana, you told me about the news story. So, were there any other things that that led to the downward spiral of the Bridges Center?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, with the news story, and there was actually 3 times,
okay,
3 news stories, but
different news stories.
Yes, 3 different news stories.
Wow.
All employees going to the news. And that would be emailed to our employees that we would bring on, so the turnover became really, really high.
Yeah, because they thought they were working for an organization
that was doing things that were questionable.
Right.
So that led to even more, because you got to train people, so you're struggling with even more bringing in revenue. We were struggling even more to bring in revenue. Also, I had people that I relied on that just kind of left.
Yeah.
So that made it harder, kind of putting me in position where, as the leader, I was the only main leader there.
Wow.
And that was hard.
Wow.
People that I thought I could trust to be there as a backbone did not, they kind of just decided to not be
How
there.
high was your stress during that time?
Very high.
Yeah.
I mean, physically, not that I'm a victim, because I don't want it to sound like that, Taunya, but
we know that.
I know,
that
but
in,
yes,
in our
it made me
field,
physically sick.
that
sick.
we deal with burnout because we're
Yes.
always helping other people.
And you don't realize it.
And you don't
We're
realize
just
it.
going and going and trying to keep it going. And the news stories kind of propelled me to even really try to keep it going.
Yeah.
So, during that time, I wasn't being paid
Right.
either. So I went for over a year without being paid myself. And that led to me, our family losing our home.
Yeah.
And
probably just forgetting to do a lot of stuff too.
I mean, but we couldn't pay our bills.
Right.
So we lost our home. I used up my children's college savings to keep the Bridges Center going. And so, that still has an effect on my life.
Right.
So, during the time of the foreclosure, we moved into a rental home. And so, the summer before the foreclosure, which was in June of 2011, that summer, maybe probably a month before, I had gotten a running a stop sign ticket, picking up my daughter from summer to camp.
Okay.
And, with so many things going on, being stressed and trying to, make it work and keep it going, I just forgot about the ticket.
Okay.
So even though they mail you reminders, we had a foreclosure. I had moved.
You had a lot going on.
I had moved.
Yeah.
I didn't get the reminders.
Okay.
So I was at the bank one day, and the cop trying to, I'm sure, meet quotas or whatever, runs tags at the bank, and I was coming out, and he says, "Ma'am, your tag looks kind of funny." And I really didn't even realize what it was. I had totally forgotten about that.
Right.
Running the stop sign ticket. And he couldn't even tell me what it was, because it was in a different county.
Okay.
So all he knew was there was an issue with, I had a failure to appear. So I did get arrested for that.
Wow.
For the failure to appear for that running the stop sign.
Running the stop sign.
Yes. And because of all
Didn't
the things that happened, honestly, I was so stressed, I forgot about it.
Yeah.
Not an excuse, but I just did. I didn't even know what it was until I got transferred to the county.
It happens.
The ticket was. Yes. That's when I found out what it was. They couldn't even tell me in Gwinnett, which is where I live.
And that's why I asked you, were you under a lot of stress at that time?
It was beyond
because
stress.
when our stress is high, we are only trying to make it from day to day. We're not thinking that I'm a therapist.
You're kind of like a motor.
You're just, I'm
You're
going, I'm doing the basic things that are right in front of me. And so paying my ticket or, even eating are things that you just don't
Your
even
health
think about
goes
doing.
down. I mean, I had to meet with, because of the payroll issues, I had to meet with IRS and Department of Labor on regularly scheduled meetings.
Right.
Because even with the issues, I was still submitting the reports as required. So doing that and the stress of that and knowing that if we didn't, they were very helpful in waiting to see if we could turn things around.
Right.
And, you know, they only give you so much time, and 3 years is a lot of time to wait.
Right.
So that stress is mounting.
You get arrested. They take you to jail.
For a couple hours, yes. For a couple of hours, yes.
How did you handle that, and how did that affect your business?
I knew when he stopped me at my car that it was going to be taken and twisted.
Okay.
I even said to him, "Sir, please don't do this. If you knew what was going on right now,
Right.
and how this is going to be taken." But he had to do his job, so
Right.
you know I had to respect that. So I mean, at the car, I was even like, "Please don't do this. People are going to take this and run with it," and they did. They did.
So talk to me about that. How did they take that? You ran a stop sign.
Yes.
You didn't pay your ticket.
Right.
You go to they detain you for a couple of hours. So what happened with that scenario? How did that scenario get blown out of proportion?
People who were upset, and again, as they should be, people who were upset about things that were happening with slow pay or not being able to pay people, were constantly watching as to what was going on at the British Center. There was a blog that a gentleman had where he still posts things about the British Center. So he posted the mugshot.
Wow.
The person who had the blog going. It's called the British Center, The Truth. The blog is still up.
Wow.
So he posted it. It says other. But people took other to mean Elena's been arrested for Medicaid fraud.
Exactly.
Not for what it really meant.
Right.
There's not even a record. But it doesn't matter. At this point, like, it's not even there anymore.
Yeah.
But sites that pull that stuff and want you to pay to have it taken off, those sites are still up.
Right.
But there's no record because you pay the ticket and you're released and everything's gone, which is what I did while I was only detained a couple of hours.
So, Elana, I see this website. I see your mugshot. A stellar businesswoman who works with different cultures and works with children and a mother. You have a mugshot.
Yes.
And people are saying it's because of Medicaid fraud.
Right.
What'd you do?
What did I do?
How do you clear your name from that?
The West, it's hard to clear your name when it's on the internet. I love the internet, Taunya.
Well, we know
I'm a social media person.
We know everything on the internet.
Yeah,
I
love the and everything on the internet is real. So people make their story, and everybody, you choose to believe it or not.
Right.
But it's hard to clear your name because when people have chosen to make a story that everybody believes, and based on a pattern or whatever they see, that's what they're going to believe. And I've encouraged people that have asked, call the State Department, call the Attorney General's office.
Right.
They would be the one to tell you if that happened, which they will tell you it didn't.
Check your facts.
Yeah, check your facts, but that's not what people do.
Right.
They don't check their facts. They just go on what is everyone saying?
Right.
What is on the internet? And that's, to them, that's the facts.
Right.
And unfortunately, they're not.
So, we've gone from, Bridget Center, one of the top programs in the state to, we've got to pay money back to the Department of Labor, we got to pay taxes, I'm arrested.
Yes.
And then here we are. So, I know there had to been a lot of feelings, a lot of emotions, but what was going on
That's
that
an
caused?
understatement.
Yes, I'm sure. What was going
Understatement.
on that led you to close the Bridges Center? Because you closed the Bridges Center.
I did.
So tell us about that. What led you to close the Bridges Center?
What led me to close it was a series of personal things. I had a friend that was murdered in July.
Okay.
That was kind of the start of the emotional toll of not being available to her, not knowing that she was going through some domestic violence situations.
Wow.
And feeling like if I had been more available to my friends since college, maybe she would still be alive.
Okay.
So that happened in July 2012. That was kind of the start of the emotional, really being sick.
Right.
Because there was a lot of guilt around that.
Okay.
Still is.
Yeah.
Still is a lot of guilt around that, of being so focused on making this business work that I've neglected people that I care about.
Okay.
And then the news stories two of the news stories came out the week that she was murdered. which added to the stress.
Of course.
You know, I had communication with the reporter, but unfortunately they don't report, you know, the good stuff.
Right.
So, you know, the communications were nice, but that's not what was reported on the news stories.
Okay.
So I found out about, you know, the news stories after the fact. So it was the start of that. Then my grandmother, who had become ill, who is my mother to me.
You're very close to your grandmother.
Very close to my grandmother. And she had been asking me to come see her. 2011, starting probably about spring, you know, through the end of the year. Come see me. I'm not going to be here much longer.
Wow.
You know, some things were going on personally with her, and
Yeah.
she was kind of going on downhill. And I kept telling her I would come home to Mississippi to see her, making promises, and I couldn't keep them because I was trying to keep the agency afloat.
Right.
So that went on. I was at a state meeting on January the 6th. I will never forget the date.
Okay.
Of 2012. Got home and found out my grandmother had died.
And I know that must have been really hard and difficult for you.
It helped me to realize that you have to remember what's most important in your life. Because if you're not at your best, your company can't be at its best.
Right.
It also helped me to realize that when you're hurting people, and I realized I was ultimately responsible, and I'm accountable for what happened in the British Center. You know, I can you know, say other people weren't doing this and that, but ultimately I was accountable for that, regardless of who you have in charge of this or that. Ultimately, you're accountable for making sure it's done. And when you're hurting people, staff who need their paychecks because they're trying to support their families and you're not able to do that, at some point I wouldn't pay people if I couldn't pay the taxes because I was called to the carpet on that by the IRS. So you can't pay the taxes and you don't pay anything. So that meant not paying people because of the revenue wasn't coming in to do it all.
Right.
So,
Elana, were you trying to come up with a plan?
yes.
You know, it's like,
Yes.
so, you know, it's like, it's not like I'm just not going to pay people, I'm going to keep the money, but were you trying to come up with a plan?
Yes, and the plan was very difficult to carry out because what would happen is the people who were disgruntled, and again, as they should be, would call the office to see what new staff were there, and then they would email. So the turnover was so high. So trying to execute the plan by bringing in new people was very difficult.
Yeah.
You know, it felt like a revolving door, and that was uncomfortable.
So Elana, we just finished this journey. You know, we started at the top. Not to sound cliche, we started at the top. And then we came, now we're here, you know? And so, you know, being a part of being a life learner,
Yes.
there, as we grow, we're going to make mistakes.
Yes.
We're going to fail.
Yes.
But from those failures
Yes.
or learning experiences or painful
I like
learning
to call them
experiences,
life lessons.
we should learn something.
Yes.
And so I want to ask you to share with us, you know, what are maybe 3 pivotal things that you learned from your experience with the Bridges Center?
Okay. So, you know, the things I learned are you definitely have to hire right, and I have to add to that hiring family. You need to be very careful with that. There are some people who I know who have very successful agencies, who have great family members there, but I can tell by the way they function, those family members were hired based on their skills and abilities and their loyalty and commitment to the vision and mission and the success of the agency.
Hire for skills.
Hire
not
for
because we're
skills.
kin.
Yes.
Okay.
Hire for skills. And don't set people up for failure. You know, just because a person is there, you can't just say do the job. Give people responsibilities that match their strengths.
And not just supervision.
Yes.
Because, you know, I work with agencies all over the country, And supervision is not enough.
Right.
You know?
Yes.
It's
Development.
not enough.
What you're talking about is developing people where they need to be developed.
Yes.
But even with that, I think you have to assess a person's strengths and abilities and not just say, you know, you're a warm body in this seat and I need you to do the job. Because when you do that, you're setting them up for failure, and they're going to fail.
We see that all the time.
I have to say, if I were to do that, that's my fault. That's not the person's fault that I let go because they couldn't do the job.
Yeah.
Know the state laws, and not just the laws for Department of Behavioral Health or the guidelines, the guidelines for DCH, but also know the laws for IRS and the Department of Labor.
Okay.
And once you know them, follow them.
Wow.
Even though it may be hard.
Wow.
And don't try to skirt the law.
Wow.
Because you will get, they will know.
Okay.
And so even though we didn't do that, I think that just like you having consulted with agencies, I have too.
Yeah.
And I've seen people try to do things to avoid what they're really supposed to do, and it's eventually going to catch up with you.
Right.
It's eventually going to catch up
So
with
your
you.
top three are hire right, know the laws,
and pay your taxes.
and pay your taxes, and develop
On
your people.
time.
On time.
Yes,
On
because the
time.
penalties can be more than the taxes themselves.
Exactly.
And what people don't know is that payroll taxes, if you decide to close, they will roll over to you as an individual. They don't go away when you close your business.
So you close your business and you think, I'm done, but you're not done.
Yes.
Because if you owe payroll taxes, then that becomes your
an individual responsibility.
Okay.
Yes.
So that now belongs to Elana Winfrey.
Yes. So you can't file bankruptcy for those.
Wow.
Nothing. Payroll taxes can't be. They roll over to you as an individual.
Elana, I've worked with behavioral health organizations around the country, going in to develop them, not only clinically through training, but also to develop their business acumen. And so one of the things that I realized, being a human services person myself, is that our academic programs don't prepare us for business.
No, they don't.
They prepare us to help people.
To be a helping professional.
But it doesn't help. They don't prepare us to have businesses. They don't prepare us to think beyond that. They don't prepare us to be clinical directors, because that's a business function of a behavioral health organization.
It is.
And so, it requires development. It requires consultation and coaching. And one of the things that I really love, and I think one of the things that really led me to focus more on consultation and coaching, is that when I went into organizations and I would see how broken they were, and I just start kind of really just helping to build them up, because they did a wonderful job with serving the clients.
Right.
They did a great job with serving the clients,
Right.
but they did terribly at being a business person.
Yes.
And having a position, a title, CEO, I'm the CEO, just because you sign the checks, it doesn't mean that you have all of the skills necessary to run a business.
That is correct.
To run a business. So I'm going to ask you another question. What is it that you know now, as the former CEO of the Business Center, that you wish you knew then?
Okay. I wish I had known my strengths a little better, and I wish I had known how to bring in leadership that met me where I wasn't strong. To have a balance in leadership. I think when you know where your challenges are, you have to have people that are your support system around you that have strengths where you don't necessarily have strengths. So for example, my strength was in marketing and bringing in the business, nurturing relationships, and even to the day we closed, we still got tons of referrals.
Yeah.
So I even had to deal with that at the closure time. So that was my strength, bringing in the business, knowing how to do that, knowing how to make sure referring agents were satisfied. But I wasn't always best at managing the people and making sure that they were doing what they needed to do. Getting people to do what it was you were expecting of them.
Right.
And I think there's certain people that have personalities that are very good at that.
Yeah.
And you have to have in your leadership team, it should be a balance of strengths and weaknesses. I'm strong at this, you're strong at that, this person's strong at this, and when we all come together, everything's being done very well.
Exactly.
And I can say I did not have that.
Okay. Okay.
So, just making sure you have that support that mimics your strengths.
Would you say you didn't have it because you felt like you had to do it all?
At some point, yes.
Okay.
At the beginning, as we grew, it became more and more difficult.
Yeah.
Because then you're trying to wear many hats.
Yes.
And if people aren't stepping up to the plate to help with that, you're continuing to try to wear many hats, which isn't possible.
Elana, we talked about hiring. That was probably the first blog post that I wrote about people, they don't hire right, and that's why they fail. What would you add to that around hiring practices for behavioral health organizations or any business? What would you add to that?
I would say asking, as far as hiring practices, making sure that you're asking the right questions.
Yeah.
Using good behavioral interview questions.
Yes.
A lot of people just ask very stagnant questions, but not behavioral interview questions that will tell you a lot about how the person functions. And unfortunately, I wasn't doing all the interviewing, but again, it's ultimately my responsibility to make sure that the right people are there. But asking the right questions to know what strengths they have. And, asking that person what their challenges are and hoping that they'll be honest, because even though they have challenges, it doesn't mean they won't be good.
Right.
You know what you're working with and you know what you have to develop.
And know where to put them.
Sometimes
so you may be hiring for one position, but they may be better in another position where they can do well.
That is correct. And you want to set them up for success.
Exactly.
And not just put them in a position where they really don't have the skill sets or the aptitude and set them up to fail.
Right. So you said some of the lessons that you learned, hire right. We talked about hiring. We talked about knowing the law, the guidelines and all of that. Pay your taxes. What are some other things that you would share with an agency that may be struggling? What are some other things that you would share?
Yeah, and I'm going to say taxes again. Pay your taxes on time.
Yes.
Pay your taxes on time or figure out this, I don't know. You just have to figure out a way, but you got to pay them on time.
Yes.
Also having a contingency plan, so when the state makes changes, you can make the change.
Yeah.
If there's a change you need to make in your agency, don't just, make a change without having a plan for how you're going to move forward. What I experience and what I've seen is people will make a move, but they really don't have a strong contingency plan on how they're going to continue to function. So let's just say you decide to lay off people, or you decide to, cut positions in half or half-time. Do you have a contingency plan for how those duties are going to be covered?
Right.
If you don't have it before you make the move, when you make the move, you're going to be caught up with a lot of things falling through the cracks. So always have a contingency plan when you're going to make a move. And if the state announces a change, they usually give you more than enough notice.
More than enough notice.
They do, and I have to admit that. They give you more than enough notice so that you can start making strategic changes in your agency to accommodate that.
Okay. And
you can't wait until the day the change takes effect to start trying to adjust.
What else?
Also, nurturing relationships.
Why is that important?
That was something we did very well.
Okay.
And that's why we did get big. When people call me now asking for help about, getting referrals and stuff, that nurturing relationships is so important because it's not about you. And I think people see it as, this is the person that's going to give me a referral. That's not what that person is.
Yeah.
That person, that referring agent is someone who has a need. And it's your job to meet that need.
How can I serve you?
Yes. How can I serve you best? How can I make your job easier? And if you're not having that approach and it's just about how can I get a referral out of you, they're not going to keep referring to you.
No, they're not.
So, doing things like even just stopping by, even in your marketing plan, your marketing plan may be...
But I got to have a marketing plan.
Yeah, you got to have a marketing plan. But in your marketing plan, it may be, every day, the community liaison is going to make 3 visits to one of our consistent referral agents just to check in, a face-to-face. Hey, Miss Dr. Lowe, how are you doing?
Right.
We just wanted to see, if our staff are providing the services that the way you need them. Are you getting your weekly summaries? Are there any concerns? And they usually are going to say no. They're so taken aback by the fact that you came in there and cared.
And they didn't call you.
And they didn't have to call you and ask. So that face-to-face stopping by.
Okay.
Doing email marketing letters just to stay connected. Stay connected when they're not in your face.
Keeping people engaged.
Yes, let them have a way that they know they can contact you. And also making sure that you have tightly designed systems and processes and people to make sure those processes are executed flawlessly.
Yes.
Okay. If you don't have that, then you're going to have things falling through the cracks as well.
It's hard to hold people accountable.
It is.
When you don't have processes and systems in place.
Because you don't even know what the process is. And
if you're making it up on the fly, or if we're in a meeting and we're talking about it, but we don't share it with somebody else, and then things fall through the cracks.
And they need to be documented. A lot of people do what I call sidewalk conversations.
There you go.
And they expect when they told you on the sidewalk, that's just an analogy. You could be in the hall.
Oh, I love it.
They expect that because they told you you're going to remember and be able to do it. People's brains don't function that way.
Processes
have to be documented and trained and followed up on, a system to follow up on, and not just you come in a meeting and say you're going to do this, this, and this, and expect people to walk away and do it. That's not a system.
It doesn't work.
And that's not a process.
No.
Okay.
No.
Also, value those people who value your mission and vision.
Yes.
Let them know constantly that you value.
But wait a minute, you got to have a mission and vision first. That's yours.
Okay.
That's running the organization. I'm sorry.
You're talking about your experience. That's difficult. We always had a mission and vision, core values.
Yes, and they should drive the
our
organization.
staff kept cards that they had to keep with them that have their core values.
Yes.
I got that from the Starbucks book.
Yes.
Make sure your staff always have the core values on them and can recite them at any time.
When I worked for the YWCA years ago, our CEO then, Delby Harshvisher, we had to know the mission of the YWCA. We had to carry our membership cards as employees. So I'm very connected to that.
Yes. We had those cards, and I used it from the Starbucks model where people walk around with the core values in their pocket. So then you ask them, hey, what are our 5 core values? What do they mean? They, even they can remember, they can pull out the card and recite them.
Yeah.
So, having those and having people that believe in it and are committed to that success and showing them that you appreciate them. Especially when you're struggling, a lot of times people are just punitive, and not really letting people know that who are working hard, who are committed, letting them know how much you appreciate them.
Right.
Because they're going to be the people that help you to carry things through.
They're the people that help you grow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And then I think finally, as a CEO, regardless of how big you are, you have to know that you ultimately are accountable. Yeah. It's easy to blame, so-and-so didn't do something, but ultimately, as a CEO, you're accountable for making sure that gets done, whether it's the person you had in charge, were they doing it? And if they weren't, that's a problem. But you as a CEO need to know that.
Yeah.
And one thing I learned was from 9/11, one of the biggest companies that got affected by 9/11 was a brokerage firm.
Yes, I know that story.
And most of their staff passed away in 9/11. And it was one of the biggest, it still is, one of the biggest brokerage firms in the world. And the CEO knew that he was ultimately responsible for saving that company. They had no HR department.
Yeah.
They had no brokers. They had no one. They had gone from hundreds of people down to about 40, 30 people. Yeah. And he had to decide how to function. And he knew that ultimately it was his responsibility. And even despite the attacks that he got,
he had to make some hard choices.
Families who were upset about, am I gonna, or my loved one has died, am I gonna still get paid? Well, he couldn't do that. Yeah. And those families were very upset, and he was attacked. But he had to keep going to keep the company going, so that he could do what they needed. And it took a while. Yeah. But during that time, people were very upset. But it got to the point where he created a foundation and all of that to be able to compensate the families of those victims for a while. And that's a testament of taking full accountability for what happens to your company.
Sure it is. Definitely.
Even when other people are involved.
Because at the end of the day,
you are the CEO.
All roads lead back
to the CEO.
To the CEO. All roads lead
back to the CEO. And I know that's me. Yeah.
Wow, Elana, we've had a full day. Tell me, what are you doing now? Where are you now?
I do different things, Taunya. I'm a consultant. You already know because you've been one of my clients.
Yes, I have. Yes, I have.
You've been one of my clients.
Learned a lot from you.
Teaching people how to do social media marketing has been a big piece of what I've done. I've also had private practice, and I still do that, online counseling. I've done it face-to-face, but now I'm doing it online. continuing to be, I'm always contacted by agencies who knew how big the British Center was and want us to teach them how to market. So I do that selectively as people, I think people are a good fit to learn that.
Great.
And so I'll continue to do that. Right now I'm creating an online training program called Mental Health Marketing Success, so that agencies can go online and learn it virtually how to market, whether you're a behavioral health agency, a group practice, or a private practice.
Awesome. And that's
how to bring in the business.
It's not just limited to Georgia.
No, how to bring in the business.
In any state or country, if you're a mental
yes.
health provider.
Correct.
Awesome.
How to bring in the business, because we were very good at that.
Elana, how can people contact you?
I'm all over the internet. I'm on every.
Oh, of course you are.
I love social media, so you know that. I mean, I'm on Google. You just look up my name. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter, Instagram. I don't even need to go on. I'm on the internet.
So can they go to your website?
Yeah, ElanaWinfrey.com.
And they can.
Yes, and the training site is Mental Health Marketing Success.
Okay.
So they can go there and also reach me. But you can also, catch me on Twitter. I'm always on there. I'm always on Facebook. Google, like I said, Instagram.
So they can go to your website and connect with you on
yes,
all of your social mediums.
Yes, they can.
Awesome.
Yes, they can.
Awesome. Elana, thank you for joining us on our Riot Starter chat today. I hope that you learned something that you can apply in your business. Although our focus was behavioral health organizations, a lot of the things that we talked about today can apply to any business, and oftentimes they do. Some of the takeaways that I hope you picked up were understanding your strengths and your weaknesses. Operating in your strengths, but getting that support in your challenge areas. Having systems and processes in place, which are very, very vital. And then getting that support, working with the coach consultant like myself or like Elana to help you through the rough patches, but not just through the rough patches, because that's when people call me. I want you to call me before times get hard, so that you can avoid that.
I wish I had called you.
I would have been so happy to help
that
you.
wasn't my area of expertise.
Yeah.
I wish I had called you at the point where, let's just say, the Department of Labor said change people over W-2 so we could realign and do it correctly. I would have to defer to you for that. I'm great at bringing in the business.
Yeah.
And, but
that's strength.
It's fine to bring in the business, but when the business is coming in, do you have everything else in place to manage that?
Yeah.
And I do think that's where you come in.
One of the things that I often ask, one of the questions I often ask people is, who are you thinking with? You've got to have strategic thinking partners. And there's no better way to have a strategic thinking partner than to work with a coach or work with a consultant. They oftentimes people say everyone needs to have a therapist. Well, I believe that everyone needs a coach to help them get to where they need to be. So stay tuned. Thank you so much for joining us again on the debut episode of the Riot Starter Chat, and we'll see you next time.